Hello, everybody. So thank you, students of Heriot-Watt, joining this session. I'm just going to take you through a few housekeeping so that you can get the most out of today's session. So first of all, your cameras are automatically off, so you should only be able to see the speakers. For anyone unfamiliar with Zoom, in the top right-hand corner of your main screen, you will see something that says View. When you click on that, it will give you gallery view or speaker view. So for the best experience, I would suggest that you put it on speaker view, and then you'll be able to see the person talking at the time and then the other speakers at the top. However, we will be having a question and answer session in the second half of this event. So please feel free to put your video on to ask the question. One of the things about having the recruitment fair next week and about linking with different employers and different industry professionals is about sometimes putting yourself out there and being brave and putting your camera on to ask your questions. But obviously we want you to feel comfortable. So there is the chat facility. So at the bottom in the center, you will see the word chat, and you're welcome to put any questions throughout today's session. And then, as I mentioned, we'll have a proper Q&A time as well. We will be recording this session. So if you have any objections to it being recorded, then obviously don't put your camera on, and do let us know if you'd prefer that it's not to be recorded. The benefit of us recording it is that we have our own YouTube channel for the Watt Club, and then other students who can't make today's session can see it, as well as other graduates. So that's why we have that in there. So I hope you enjoyed today's session. We're going to be speaking to the panel. We've got two great alumni who have kindly working in HR and come to join us. So I'd like to introduce you to Keshavi Thacker and Amy Sherrier. And they're actually from the same batch, from the same graduation year, both from the School of Social Sciences. However, because they work within HR, this session is applicable to anybody that is approaching anyone working within HR. Behind the scenes, we have Jen Johnson, my colleague, who's the Alumni Engagement Officer, popping up, giving you a wave there. And she's actually going to be monitoring the chat today. So you do have the facility to send questions directly to the host, or you can put it for everybody to see. So she will be watching those. And my name is Catherine Taylor, and I'll be hosting today's session. I'm also an Alumni Engagement Officer based in Dubai. So we will have first half for the panel, and then we'll do Q&A, and then we'll have some final words just to let you know a bit more about the Watt Club as well. Okay, so without further ado, I think we'll get straight into the questions for Keshavi and Amy. I'd like you to introduce yourself, but also give us a bit of an idea about actually what you've been doing since your studies, what you studied at Heriot-Watt, what your career journey has looked like, and what you're currently doing. So Keshavi, can I ask you to start?
Yes, first of all, a very good morning or good afternoon from wherever you're joining. My name is Keshavi Thacker, and I'm one of the alumni from Heriot-Watt University. I've graduated in 2016, so I've done my bachelor's in business administration honors. And from that time, I had decided I know where I want to go in finance. So I chose all the subjects and non-financial aspect. I knew HR was my thing, so I did my final dissertation in there. And right from the time I'm out of the university, it was my time to search a job. So I started going ahead. I'll explain later what all struggles and everything I went through. After my Heriot-Watt, I started my career with HR, but I felt that I needed a little more knowledge, in-depth knowledge in the field. So I did my CIPD level 3. And currently I am pursuing my master's, that is Masters of Science in International Human Resource Management. And again, it's accredited to CIPD level 7. Yeah, so that's it from my side.
Thank you very much. And Amy?
So hi everyone, a very warm welcome to all of you. And my name is Amy Sherrier, and I basically as well studied in batch of 2016 as a bachelor's in business management. Thereafter, I pretty much ended up joining Adidas and as an intern, in fact, and I'll take you through that a little bit more later on as well. But currently, I am working in India and based out of Mumbai with Hindustan Unilever, which is essentially a subsidy of Unilever, and I work as a people experience lead that looks after the entire employee life cycle and the employee journey of an employee, right from onboarding all the way to offboarding.
Thank you very much. So obviously we know where you are now, but I wonder if you could tell us a bit more about your career journey as a student and as a fresh graduate, and how that kind of felt and what steps you took as a student and a graduate. And perhaps you might have a few, I know that Keshavi had said to me yesterday that a few mistakes along the way as well. Amy, can I ask you to get started on that one?
Sure, absolutely. So throughout my 4 years of my sort of bachelor's program, I made it a point to sort of do internships every summer. I did have a couple of friends who took another path and decided to do summer courses abroad. That also worked for them, but I felt like I would prefer leisure and fun time to travel and work in Dubai as an intern. So while I was doing my internships, I think one of my first internships that I did right at the first year was a little bit about a mix of a couple of roles. So it was marketing, it was HR, and it was finance. And I think the reason I did that was to kind of get an understanding of each of the different positions, to know for sure what I really wanted to do and where I really wanted to go in my career. And for me, at that point of time, HR really stood out. And for the reasons that I realized HR was a very people person's job, and it allows you to interact with people and really help people to build their careers as well. So I knew from then that I wanted to do HR. Thereafter, the following internships, I focused on going into different parts of HR. So understanding and learning a little bit about, say, L&D, a little bit about HR as an HR coordinator, onboarding, offboarding. So kind of just the overall holistic HR. To be very honest, I knew for sure I did not want to do payroll because money and finance is not for me either. But besides that, I got a nice background of all of them. And eventually, once I graduated in 2016, I took my last internship with Adidas. Over there, I really struggled for about 8 months because I wanted to go into a full-time position, but at the same time, they needed experience. So it was very important to give them that experience and to allow them to build trust in me, to know that, okay, she's good at the role, she's good at what she does. And eventually 8 months into the role, they then made me a full-time employee with them. I would say that has probably been my hardest struggle in my career, for the simple reason that within that role, not only did I learn the entire aspect of HR in terms of onboarding people, but my line manager was also very encouraging, and she allowed me to sit in a couple of termination interviews to really see how that goes. Unfortunately, due to the whole recession at that point of time, my job too was let off. So it was my first time being terminated. And for me, that was extremely devastating because I really didn't know what to expect. And it came as a surprise. But I really feel today, like looking back, that that was probably the start of my career, essentially, because it was through that termination that I was able to say, okay, I know what I want to do with my life. And this is one step down that really let me go, but how can I proceed from here? And it was through that I said, let me start pursuing my dream. And my dream was always to go to LSE to study masters. So thanks to the termination, I had precisely 1 week to apply for LSE as a master's student. And I remember going up to Miss Catherine and saying, I need your help. I need a recommendation. I have less than 24 hours to apply. But thankfully, I got into my dream university and went there, studied for a year. And I was really able to apply what I had learned. And I was really able to apply, even to an extent, the reason of being terminated, I was able to apply that into my learnings as well, because I realized why companies terminate and why they do what they do and why they make certain decisions that they have to make. After LSE, for personal reasons, of course, that I got married, I had to move to India. And moving to India was not so easy because it was a new country for me. It was a new place. I'd never been here before. But I think the one major learning that I had through moving and through shifting was the power of building networks, to be very honest, and to really push yourself to ask the right questions, to interact with the right people, and really essentially know what you want and what you want to achieve to be able to achieve that sort of level. And that's essentially how I've reached Unilever now, because through my networks, through contacting, through reaching out on LinkedIn and finding the right people to connect with and say, this is the job I want to do. How do I get here? So that's been my career journey so far in the last 6 years.
Thank you, Amy. And that's amazing, just in 6 years that all of that has happened, which I'm sure you didn't expect when you were actually a student and first graduating. Keshavi, can we learn a bit more about your career journey?
Definitely. So unlike Amy, I did not do any internships during my college years. That is, I think, one of the biggest mistake which I made. Obviously, when you're an Indian family, you have your younger siblings and they just get summer vacation in the July, August. And that's when we get our breaks. So the family always decides to go back to India, let's visit, spend some time with relatives. So unfortunately, I did not do any internships. That is where my struggle began. And that is, I think, one of the biggest mistake which I made during my journey. I came out of Heriot-Watt University. I had decided I wanted to get into HR. But getting in was not easy because everywhere they ask you at least a year of experience. And people who had done the internships, they were getting the jobs very quickly. So I started my first internship with Mum's World. It was a data entry operator internship, something which I really hate. I am not into so much into Excel data entry, but I realized that is something important for me because learning Excel will help me later in my field, which I said, okay, let's go for it. Did my 2 months of internships there in Mum's World. Then I came there. I even worked as a receptionist in Dutco just to learn on the admin front. So gathered my experience in data entry, reception. Then finally my journey began in HR when I started working with Crown Plaza. The struggle again was not, the struggle was there indeed. I stay in Dubai and my internship was in Yas Island, which is in Abu Dhabi. So the option of traveling back and forth every day was not there. So I had to stay there. But I took a good 6 months of experience over there. They had even offered me a full-time role, but due to some situation at that particular time, I couldn't take it. Again, my struggle started to find a full-time job in HR or something as an internship. Didn't get a full-time job, but luckily got an internship. But based on my performance, they could put me into full-time. That was in a construction company. I was doing sole focus on recruitment, which is the core. People always think that HR is always recruitment. But right now I can say that's not the case. Recruitment is just a small bit of HR. And I had decided I wanted to know the overall function of HR. I don't want to be a recruiter because this is what I felt and this is what happened with me. Again, there was recession and even I got redundant. Same like Amy. So that is when I realized when there is no growth and when the business is in struggle, the first point of time they attack are the recruiters because there's no hiring in the company. That's when I realized in HR, you're not supposed to know just recruitment. But that was fine. I was unhappy for a bit. I felt like finally when I got into a full-time job, after 2 years, I got redundant. But that's okay. I took my 1 month break, went to India, came back, started looking again. And then I got an opportunity with Home Center, which is a part of a landmark group. It's one of the biggest retail sectors in UAE. Got there, learned recruitment again, did my onboarding, then right from onboarding to offboarding, learned the HR operations, went from the store operations, got my struggles into that. Then right now, due to networking and having good connections, I got my job where I'm currently working, which is Rivoli Group. So Rivoli is basically a luxury retail stores in UAE. They are into watches, eyewear, leather accessories. So yeah. And in between, I realized that apart from working, you need to have your development in career, like educational wise. So I did my CIPD while I was working in the construction company. I got a little bit of piece of time over there and I did it online. Again, very scared to do online, have never done online schooling, which nowadays is very common because of COVID. But at my time, it was not that common. But did that, had a good experience, got insight information about, apart from recruitment, how there are other functions of HR, came out of that. And right now, my plan was to go for master's again outside, but due to some reason, I couldn't go there. And I'm like, instead of sitting and crying and cribbing and why I can't go there, let's do our master's online. So right now, I'm doing my master's online from Manchester Metropolitan University, again UK based. Yeah.
Thank you. And it's so great to hear two different perspectives of one of you had done internships and obviously felt the benefits, and then one of you hadn't and learned a few lessons along the way. But both of those experiences would have shaped how you're doing now. And it's a lot of it is also about that resilience that you go through as graduates, isn't it? So now that obviously when you were leaving us, you would have been looking at it purely from a student point of view. I myself used to work in careers, and I know that sometimes students would expect to go straight into a management role or their dream job or things like this. Now that you actually work in HR and you're seeing things from the other perspective, how has it changed your perspective of how graduates and students should approach HR? Keshavi, do you want to start with that one?
Sure. So this is when I was looking for a job, I was very, adamant that I want to look into the field of HR itself. Even though I got one or two opportunities in between as internships, it was not HR, so I refused them. And that is, I think, one of the biggest mistake which I made. Like, even if you want to get into the field which you target at the end, but if you get something around that, like if you get management, if you get marketing, finance, anything, just like for myself, I'm talking about management, especially if you get around that, go for it. And do not look at the pay, which is most of the students do look at now, that why should I work for such a less amount? I have worked for less than 500 dirhams as my first pay. So these are not your salaries, these are your stipends, that's what they say. And so just go for it. It's fine that those are there just to gain you the experience. You know that you do not have the experience in the market. You know that the company requires it. So you are not in much of a favor right now. The only thing which you have right now is you are the soft skills. Focus on that. Focus how you can improve them. Be confident. This is what I did. Like, whatever you think, just speak out, because people do not companies know that you do not have the experience. They're willing to interview you. That means you have crossed that panel. So don't worry on that. I do not have the experience. Research on the company, what they are doing, because definitely those are the basic questions that they might ask. No one wants to hire someone who doesn't know even an ABC on the company. So these are basic things that people look into. Go for that. Focus on your soft skills. You do not have the hard skills. It's okay. Come up with your experiences that you went through as a student, during your projects that you had with your team members, individually. How did you struggle? How did you cope up with that? Go for it and just have a strong network building. When you go for this career fairs, you have hardly 1 or 2 minutes to capture their attention. If that does not work out, they will not take your interview for a longer time. And imagine them getting so many students at the same time to interview. Have that one USP which will catch their attention and which will make it remember, okay, I interviewed this particular person who said this. I like the way this person spoke. I like the energy. That's how they will remember you. Yeah.
Thank you. Amy, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think Keshvi very well put. And as she rightfully said, salary is not everything. I mean, Keshvi started at 500. I started at 0, to be honest. I would do internships for free. And honestly, it was just, for me, it was always, where can I get the knowledge? Where can I get the hard skills? I'm going to do it. So whatever I could take and I could get. I remember during my second year, I had actually reached out to Miss Catherine, and I ended up getting a role in supply chain. And I said, that is nowhere what I want to do. I would never do something like that. And I still said, you know what, let's just take it. And when I ended up taking it, a week later, I made friends with the HR intern that was there. And the irony of it all is he actually wanted to do supply chain and I actually wanted to do HR. But the company decided, nope, we're going to switch them around and we're going to make them do what they don't want to do. I still took it. I still did it. I still learned from it. And who knew that 7 years down the line, working in HUL, which is a huge company that literally depends on its supply chain, I can relate to them and I can understand when the team sort of speaks about the different types of supply chains, the mechanisms they use. It did help in some ways. So you do get that all-around background, and it is important to sort of be open to whatever opportunities you get. At the same time, of course, once you do graduate, do have a focus, do have your dreams and your goals in mind that you would like to achieve. And just ensure that you are networking with the right people. As Keshavi also said, ensure that you have the unique selling point. One thing that I really encourage you to do is in the career fair, choose your top 5 companies that you really want to go to, that you're really interested in working with. Do your research for those top 5 companies and just focus on those. So go to them, say, pitch your pitch that you have, speak to them, get a point of contact over there. And immediately once you go home in the evening, reach out to them on LinkedIn and address them saying, hey, I met you at the career fair. It was great to meet you. Really look forward to taking on this opportunity forward if there is anything available in your company. So again, that builds the network, that builds the connect, and that somehow allows them to remember you saying, oh yes, I did meet this person. Also, another thing that I learned through the way is that your position title really does not matter. I mean, initially I used to always go behind, okay, now I was an associate, now I'm a coordinator, now I'm a secretary, now I want to be an assistant manager. It's only very recently that I learned titles is just a name. You could be you could be a secretary doing literally everything that a manager would be doing. So don't look at the titles, just focus on the work that you will be doing and the experience that you get out of that work. So yeah.
Thank you. And that's such a good point, because sometimes we look at companies because we want to work there because of the name. And I know that you've both worked in different companies, some with bigger names than others. And a lot of the time, graduates find that actually it's not about the company. It's about how they work and the working culture and things like that. And actually, you both brought up skills and projects that students do. So actually, students get a lot of practice. And maybe some students might not know that the reason they do so many projects at Heriot-Watt is for that precise reason of getting used to doing presentations and being able to take it into the workplace. Thank you ever so much. You've given us so much advice. We've spoken about your career and advice for students. For anybody that's wanting to enter the world of HR, obviously you've mentioned that there's so many jobs within there. Can you tell us just a bit more about what a typical day might look like for you, what your role entails? And maybe one of you could tell us about the different types of roles within HR that somebody could go into if that's what interests them. Amy, would you like to continue?
Sure. So I'll start on the different roles that HR entails. HR is actually very massive in its own way. You have, of course, payroll if you wish to do sort of rewards, recognitions, appraisals, all of that perspective and side to HR. You also have the learning and development side of HR, which in today's trend is actually moving towards being its own separate entity. So there's a whole different world in learning and development in terms of leadership programs, in terms of setting up programs as in your soft skills trainings or your hard skills trainings, and liaising with a lot of vendors on that side of the learning and development spectrum. You also then have your HR operations or your HR business partner lines, which is currently something that I'm working on right now, which is as a people experience lead. So within the HR operations, it's really about looking after the day-to-day operations of an employee. So wherein that might be essentially onboarding the employee to issuing any promotions that the employee might have, to changing their line managers, to changing their locations, transfers, or even just offboarding in the entire exit process. Then you finally have the last one, which Keshavi's already touched upon quite a bit, which is recruitment, wherein it does the pre-onboarding. So before the new joiner kind of joins the organization, interviewing them, taking their hiring documents, their candidate documents, all of that perspective as well. So to touch upon the role that I'm currently doing, I look after the employees' life cycle and their journey at Unilever, specifically the marketing employees. So a typical day would be come in the morning, say a Monday morning in the start of the week, which is when we recruit all our new joiners, and sort of taking them around the office, inducting them, letting them know where they're going to be sitting, where does IT sit, where does admin sit, help them with their laptops. So a lot of administrative part initially. Then the second half of the day, we tend to spend the day working on the rest of the operational changes that might come up. So issuing of promotion letters, issuing any reports that an HRBP might want, or any reports the business asks for. And usually through the mid of the week, we then sit with our teams. So each sort of functions, for example, in my case, marketing, has about 5 HR people within that function. And we sit together and we see what are the current trends in the marketing function on the whole. So what is the attrition rate? What is the FTE count? How can we make it better? How can we make it worse? So why is it becoming worse rather? And just recently, in fact, I think everyone's aware that we've gone through the Great Recession period. And in the last 6 months, the recession counts have been, the Great Resignation, my apologies. We've gone through the Great Resignation period, and a lot of employees are moving about, switching about because of COVID. And that doesn't go to say that a business stops just because a person resigns. So it's important to also bounce back and rehire new employees and sort of get a fresh start for each business that looks after the entire recruitment process. So that's a bit about my day-to-day.
So just a few things then there, Amy. Keshavi, do you do a similar role to Amy, or do you have other functions as well?
Quite similar to what Amy has done. My typical day also starts with, I manage, again, in this company which I'm working right now, I manage from the time the person is on board till the person is exited the organizations. So again, my Monday morning also looks like bringing people on board, making them fill the forms, taking them through the presentation, the policy presentation, something about the company, taking them around the office, coordinating with the learning and development team. So they're also the part of HR, but they have an in-depth and a more little bit, I can say, a fun version of induction than us. So tying up with them, coordinating, creating all the salary advances, making sure that they get the salaries in the bank, all the administration work, which are like quite hidden. And a lot of you do not notice, but there are a lot of things happening behind a person getting on board, checking their seating arrangements. So that's how mostly my Mondays go. Apart from that, we have performance management cycles that we have every 6 months. So looking into that, then we have disciplinary actions. Sometimes if employees do not behave in the way the company wants them, there are some disciplinary actions to be taken care of. Sometimes if people leave the organization, we have in-depth exit interviews. Why are they leaving, to understand their concerns? And if they've raised something, to work on that. My one advice is that I always felt that if you love people, get into HR. But recently I've learned that do not do that. Because if you love people, you cannot be an HR. A lot of times you might have to take some harsh decisions. And this is when I realized, when I had to terminate a few employees, if I like them, it will be very difficult for me to do it. So I got into HR because I like talking to different people, not because I like people. A lot of people have a confusion in that matter. So that is one advice to follow. This is which I have learned very recently.
I just wanted to add to Keshavi, and I think that was really, really well said. And at the same time, while you shouldn't obviously get attached to your employees, one thing to definitely have is empathy. So in HR, while terminations are extremely difficult for the employees, sometimes it's also important to have empathy, for the simple reason that just recently, in fact, when I was looking after a couple of tricky exit situations, the employees were actually terminated. So by the time they reached me, the exit interviews and everything was already over. And by the time they reached me, all they wanted to do was just talk. Like all they wanted to do was rant their frustrations, talk, and say, why did this happen to me? And sometimes you might not have those answers necessarily, but it's always good to just be empathetic and listen and say, I understand what has happened and don't worry. And there will always be a better opportunity elsewhere. And we're here to ensure that your exit process is done smoothly and that you don't face any more sort of challenges while you're exiting the organization. So while, of course, don't get attached to your employees, but definitely do be empathetic with them. Because if you don't have empathy in HR and you end up becoming this angry, serious person, trust me, you will lead into massive fights. And that's not somewhere you want to go. So, yeah.
Thank you very much, both of you. So I think now we will go, we're going to hand over to the students now and hear what questions they might have. I hope that that we will have some questions that might help them with next week. Next week is our recruitment fair. So I'm going to hand over to my colleague Jen with any questions that we might have had through.
Yes, hi everyone. So we've got one that just come in the chat, and please do feel free to use the chat. So we've got a question that's come in. Should I look for internships as a year two student? So I'd like, Amy, would you like to take that one? Thank you.
Sure, Jen. Yes, absolutely, you should. And as I said, I started as a year one student looking for internships, and I was lucky enough to get them as well. So definitely, if that's something you're interested in and you would like to look for an internship in HR, then do it for sure, because it really does broaden your mind and to a certain extent also allows you to apply what you've learned, irrespective of whether it's year 1, 2, 3, or 4.
Thank you. And Kishabi, do you have anything extra you'd like to add to that?
Definitely, you should take internships. Don't make a mistake, which I did. I constantly tell all the students who are currently in universities and colleges that please take as much internships you can, but at the same time, enjoy your vacation also, because you need that break after having those projects, assignment. You need to refresh yourself. Have that break 110%, but do not just have break, have internships also. Try to have a balance between both. Do not focus on, for example, if you're getting finally into HR, for example, for me, do not finally focus on that. If you get some small internships like data entry operator, supply chain, marketing, anything, just go into that. You never know where in the future that particular field might be helpful for you. So you go out for internship, it's good. And if it's unpaid, paid, go for it.
That's great. And in addition to that, the question is, what are some base requirements that should be looking for in an employer when looking at internships, which is a great question. What should they be looking for in employers to help them? Amy, would you like to take that?
So in terms of what you would look for in an employer, so a couple of things that I looked for, but again, this is extremely individual sort of preferences, but I would say I regret this sometimes, but one thing that I used to look for is I always wanted a big name organization. So I always wanted a multinational. The reason I say I regret this sometimes is because a lot of small-time entrepreneurship businesses today, take for example, Swiggy in India, are doing far more than a large organization would ever do. And also somewhere down the line, I also learned that in larger organizations, you can sometimes as an intern become a fish in a pond. So because of the fact that you're just an intern, you're only there for 3 months, they might not necessarily give you the bigger work to do, and they might only give you like the smaller sort of miniature tasks, or they might just give you a data entry task, for example. And that might not necessarily teach you what you want to know, versus a startup organization where they themselves are in need of people. So you coming in as an intern for 3 months might just be like a massive boon to them, saying that, okay, we've got a new employee, we have 3 months to let this person do whatever they need to do. Let's just bring them on board. So keep your horizons open. Don't focus on the big names. If that's your ultimate goal, it will happen. So don't worry. But at the start, just don't focus on the company name. Don't look at salary, because that honestly does not matter in the beginning. And as Keshavi said, you have the soft skills. Companies are looking for that. Give them what they want, and you should be okay.
Fantastic, sound advice. So the questions are coming in now, which is great. So keep them coming. What are the requirements to apply for the CIPD? Do you want to just stay on there, Amy, and answer that if you can?
I think I'll pass that to Keshavi because
sure.
she's done her CIPD, and
of course.
I've only done my CIPD level 1, which was actually combined with LSC's master's degree. So
okay,
I'll let Keshavi.
More than happy to answer that question. So CIPD has right now 3 levels, that is level 3, 5, and 7. Some places I've heard that level 9 also, but not quite sure on that. So to get into the CIPD, first you need to do is CIPD level 3. That includes so people from 0 years of experience to I think around 1 or 2 years of experience in HR can get into that field. So depending on your years of experience, you get into different levels of CIPD. I have done my CIPD level 3 when I had just done my internships and while I was working on my first time job. So that is good to go. After that, level 3, you have your level 5 and level 7. I did not do level 5. I skipped it. And right now I'm doing CIPD level 7. Initially, the CIPD level 7 is for people who have more than 6 to 7 years of experience. But the course which I am doing my master's is accredited CIPD level 7. So if you're planning to do your post-graduation after this, I don't know if anyone's planning to do that, check if your universities or any degrees are accredited to CIPD, much more helpful. Otherwise, if you have 0 years of experience, you can get into that. That's not a question of I need a basic this mark. It's a certification. It's a professional body where you can get a lot of information on the current market trends. There is a CIPD website, I think Catherine has just mentioned. Yeah, I was waiting if someone could mention that. So have a look into that. If you have any questions on that, you can feel free to ping me on LinkedIn or anything. I'm more than happy to answer your questions. I would advise that if you are doing CIPD level 3, which is the first stage of CIPD, do not spend so much of your money on that. I tried looking at courses which are physically available. My timing was kind of not matching with my working hours. So I went online. It was, of course, more feasible and more convenient. CIPD level 3 is easy. If you've done your basic management, if you have an experience in management, education, qualification, you are good to go with that. And it's a membership that you can keep renewing every year. I stopped renewing in between. Again, when I started my CIPD level 7, I'm going to renew my memberships. Again, if you're doing CIPD, it's more recognized in the UK side. If you are planning to pursue further or do your education or your final years of your life in US side, there's something called the SHRM. Both are very similar, but the UK one recognizes CIPD, the other one does its SHRM. That's what people call it, SHRM.
Great, excellent. Some great advice coming through. Another question, do recruiters give priority to skills or the results? And what are the things in mind that one needs to be aware when applying for an internship? Do you want to continue, Keshavi? Just add on a little bit from what you were saying.
Sure, definitely. So as I said earlier, when you're doing your internships, the recruiter knows that you do not have the experience. They are aware of that, and they have decided to hire a fresh graduate to do a particular internship, keeping in mind, knowing that they do not have the skill or an experience to do a particular job. So that factor, you do not need to worry. They are coming to your universities to have your career fairs. They know in mind that these students will not have the experience. They want a fresh talent, a fresh mind in their company, so that something different keeps happening. They understand, because, for example, I have been out of the education, like I did my bachelor's in 2016, and this is my master's, hopefully my last education qualification. After 10 years down the line, I'll be just stuck as a working professional. I will not have any experience in what is going on in the education background unless I keep doing some certifications. So I want fresh graduates to come in my organization, I want to understand what is the current market trend going on, so I get them. So it's fine if you do not have the right experience. It's okay. As I said, work on your soft skills, be confident, keep smiling, be open to criticism. A lot of time in internships where I was an intern, apart from my data entry operator, when I started my HR interns, my work was filing. Yeah, I'm not lying. It was filing. And I was like, this is not even a part of HR. From where is this linked? I'm doing and I'm doing what an office boys and an admin assistants do. And I'm like, it's okay. I kept noted what's there in the filing. I kept asking questions. What is this filing about? Oh, what does this documents have? So I understand more knowledge on that. So even a small task like filing, which you currently also have to do, doesn't mean that you have 6 years of experience and you stop filing. No, you have to keep doing that. So at least you get some insights on what is happening in the department. For example, if they're doing some discussions, sometimes they might involve you. You know, it's always fun to know what's happening inside, so you get to know more about your department or your field of interest.
Yes, absolutely. It's, you always learn something from whatever task you're doing. It's having that aspect on things, isn't it, in that view. So we have an engineering graduate, welcome on the call. So an engineering graduate, from the HR perspective, what is the best way to stand out to a recruiter? Would you say it's by listing some achievements from your academic journey, or is there anything specific? Amy, would you like to pick that one up?
Sure. So I think it's a little bit of a mix of both. It's both your academic achievements as well as your emotional intelligence quotient. So one thing I learned through a lot of my interviews, and I think I've been through around 11 interviews myself and taken about, I'd say, 40 odd interviews. But through the entire process, the one thing I've learned is never, ever, ever fake who you are. Because you will think that the recruiter is being faked at, and he won't be able to guess, or she won't be able to guess. But in reality, the recruiter will know if you are faking who you are. So it's extremely important to be yourself. It's okay to say, I don't know. There have been many interviews where I would be questioned things that I really didn't know as an intern, and they were okay with me saying, I don't know. I would always just say, I'm not sure, but I'd be very happy to learn about this if I join your organization. So that kind of brings a positive element to that as well. And finally, just be extremely confident and be who you are, like be true to yourself. One thing that I know for sure that employees do really like during the interview process, even till today, is the fact that you as an interviewee ask questions. So it's very important to have a set of questions at the end that you would like to know. They can be as simple as who's going to be my reporting line manager, or it can be as complicated as what is the org structure in your organization. So employers do like questions, and that also shows your ability to sort of be confident and speak out and be yourself again.
I think I would like to add to that, because I've worked in an engineering my company, which I worked for, construction company. We had a lot of mechanical and civil engineers, and of course we had them at different levels of experience, starting from 0 years to 10 years of experience. People who are really young and out in the market, we know again that they do not have the right amount of experience. That's fine. We are looking for the skill set that you have. Check on the important projects that you have learned during your education. That is something important, because obviously the technical skills are there, and that needs to be there to be an engineer. It's not like a management where you do and you just apply on soft skills. Apart from soft skill, technical skills are important. So go through your basic engineering. Do not be into so much also. Have a knowledge on your basic idea on your thing, and then go ahead with that. It's okay. And again, even a small job you get, it's okay to get. Recently, my cousin, he was also looking for a job. This is back in India. He's a mechanical engineer. And so I told him the same advice. He's a recent graduate, 1 year from the college, and looking for a job. I told him, even a smaller job you get, take it and ask questions. The main questions which I always ask in my interviews are, who is going to be my manager? And that is, who am I going to be reporting to? If I have any reportees, and what is my JD? ask that. What is your job description? What is your role and responsibility? And this is in the future that you might ask later, is my role a new role or is it a replacement? Something very important. I don't know. I always want to know if whether my role is a new role or is it a replacement. That is something which I always ask right now. I did not ask in the starting years of my career, but right now that's one common question which I ask them.
Thank you for that. That's great. Now we have another question's come in. I think we've covered the internship questions, but please do let me know if I've missed anything. I am pursuing an MSc in business psychology, and as Kashiva said, I like to talk to people and pride myself on my soft skills. I'm wondering how to start my career, such as get my CV reviewed, how to pitch it, and so on, and how to connect to alumni in my field. So we can pick up as well, Catherine and I, about connecting with your alum, and we're here to help you do that through all the different networks that we have. I love the fact that you've both mentioned about the power of building networks and strong network building, and we're all about facilitating that and helping you with that. And we'll put some links in the chat just in the last 10 minutes for people to see how they can connect with us. So from the networking side, we're happy to help, but it's great that you guys are endorsing that and the importance of staying connected. And as an Heriot-Watt alum, you have that fantastic network of already 147,000 alum across 190 countries. So please do join us as well. But I'll pass that over then to who would like to pick that question up. So advice on how to starting your career and getting your CV reviewed. Keshavi, would you like to go first?
Yeah. For getting the CV reviewed. So when I started building my CV, I had no clue what to do. I just followed what my friends were doing. And it was very base CV. And I was looking at Google CV samples. And then I'm like, okay, this is looking very bad. And surprisingly, I started making my CV one day before the career fair. I'm like, okay, tomorrow is a career fair. I don't have a CV. I need to add something on my CV. And I told my friend, just share me a CV. I'll just edit my name. And that's not how you're supposed to do it. CV building takes a lot of effort. It looks as if it's a very simple activity, but to make it, it's very complicated. Look at the current trends that the CV is going. Like right now, my CV, I recently revamped my CV like 6 months back, and my CV was like a 4-page long CV. And that is not how the current trends go. The current, like they want a 1-page CV, which was very difficult to put all of my internships, my college projects, my achievements, my roles, responsibility, who am I as a person. It was difficult. I had to sit on that, revamp my CV, look into different ideas. What do the companies want? Because the more experience you carry, the more financial impact also they want in your CV. Like how much have you saved? This is how you get your senior roles. And then I started taking advice from my senior colleagues on how to revamp my CV. I saw their CVs. If you're into HR, you get like a extra advantage because sometimes have access to all the recruiting portals. Just Google search on some of the CV formalities, example, CV of an HR manager or assistant manager, check how the achievements are. I sometimes go to LinkedIn. I look at the HR professionals because sometimes they do also mention in their CVs. I'm like, is that something which I could put it in a better version? Apart from that, get in touch with your colleagues who are working in HR. Again, as I said, networking is important. If you have good amount of network, you can ask the help, and they're always more than happy to help you to revamp your CVs. So that's fine. And keep up with the latest trends on your CV. Don't be like the old CV which used to happen. Look what that the actually a company might want in your CV, because that is one piece of paper that can go ahead with your application or even reject an application. Yeah.
I'd just like to add to that, especially since most of you guys are still students at the moment. The best place that I used to do, to be honest, is just run to Miss Catherine, run to Jen anytime. They're always happy to help you as well. I started off my CV, and then once I created it, I in fact did review it with Miss Catherine as well. Also, sometimes I feel peer-to-peer review also works wonders, because you tend to realize that sometimes you don't know yourself as well as a friend might know yourself as well. Especially the introduction section, they might tell you something like, hey, but you're actually very good at teaching or guiding and helping. And then you can sort of tweak that and add that into your CV as well. Another thing that I really do recommend is whether you are or aren't looking for a job, it's always important to keep your CV updated at least once a year. And something that my sort of colleagues had taught me to do, and I make it a practice to do, is make sure your CV in the long run, of course, once you start working, has information, especially in terms of career-wise, has information of max to 5 years. So if you've done any sort of job prior to 5 years, it's okay to remove that because the recruiters are only going to see your top 5 years that you've been working and where you've been working. So good to update on a yearly basis. Another reason why it's good to update on a yearly basis is because what you do is fresh in your head. So it's easier to sort of pen it down and put it into paper versus 10 years down the line when I decide I want to change my job and say, oh, I forgot what I did 10 years back. So it's good to keep it updated on a yearly basis.
Yeah, that's great advice. Really good. Is there anything either of you would have done differently when working as a team on group projects that would have helped you more in the workplace?
I think for me, that would be speaking up. It's been a long journey and I still struggle sometimes, but one thing if I could go back in time and do is probably speak up a little bit, to be a little bit more confident. And a really nice advice that my dad actually gave me about 8 months back when I was looking for a job change is that don't be scared of an interview, because at the end of the day, just have fun with it. You know, this is the company that you want to get into. Have fun with it. Go in there saying, hey, I'm just meeting a new person, which could potentially be my new network. And the more I apply that to each and every interview that I've been to so far, the more I realize that, hey, it's just a chance and an opportunity to meet a new person. Don't be scared. Go out there, be yourself. And if it works out, great. If it doesn't work out, there's always another door that will open in the future.
Lovely, thank you. I think we have time for another question. And with the careers fair coming up, and some of you already given great advice about focusing on the top 5 companies, Amy, and maybe just knowing what it is you're going. Is there any other advice that you have in advance of the careers fair, how people can approach it, how they can make themselves stand out a bit more to the different companies? Keshavi, would you like to take that one first?
This is what I used to do in my career fairs, like before some of them. I took a notepad, like strengths and weaknesses, or I would not like to say weaknesses. They are like my areas of improvements. So I jot down all the points which are my strengths and all the points which are my area of improvements. Strengths are something that you want to focus on during the interviews. And I always feel the areas of improvement, if I do that, they'll help me to focus and how do I align myself. So I always have that plus and minus going on in my notepad. And as Amy always approached in the top 5 companies, I didn't do that. Always, of course, I go there. I have my list of like top 3 or 4 companies. But if I have some more time, I would go and visit every particular fair, which was there. Every company I would go and visit, at least if I go. In that way, I felt, okay, even if I don't want to get into the company, I would go and interview just so that I gain confidence on how to interview. That's it. So that I get to know them, because of course, different questions will be asked by different interviewers. They'll be having a different approach. I used to just simply go there. I'm like, okay, let's go and interview this company. And my friends were like, you are not even getting into that. And I'm like, I know, but let's just let me go and just understand. I was very nervous in the first 2 interviews. I'll just go, at least I'll, cope up with my nervousness, and I'll go and, understand from what questions are they going to ask. So I did that. I used to go to every person and I used to just go and interview, so that because again, as Amy, even I was very scared to speak. Like, even like before the interview, I was like, get sweaty hands, and I'm like, okay, I need to drink water. I need to check how am I looking. Is my clothes okay? That was like a common question. And I used to be super uncomfortable wearing blazers, which I am still at. I find them very uncomfortable. But so with that, I used to get so panicked, and I'm like, you know what, the more interviews I attend, and this is like practice ground you're getting instead of going out in the real life, because that you will not get once you're out of the university. If you're getting an opportunity as a career fair, it's a practice ground for you. So seize how much ever opportunity you can. Even if you do not get selected, or if you do not get one internship, it's fine. You learned how to build a network. You met different people. You spoke up. You build up your confidence. That's something which you can always help in the future.
Great. Some amazing advice there, and we really appreciate you taking the time to answer those questions. I'll pass back to Catherine now as we close the session, but thank you. It's been very enjoyable, even from my perspective, so thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Amy and Keshavi, and I'm sure that all the students watching as well will agree that it's been a great insight and so much more knowledge beyond even what we were hoping for, so that's really good. And thank you to all the students that have joined the session as well, because all of these questions, sometimes people don't want to ask a question because they don't want fellow students to think that they don't know something, but actually all of your questions are helping everybody that's watching this video now and after the session as well. Just finally, we've put some links within the chat for you. We've linked you to the Watt Club. So the Watt Club is our official alumni association that you will be part of when you leave. So you're always a member of Heriot-Watt. You never leave us. However, because of data protection, we do need you to make sure that when you leave, you have opted into communications. So if you feel that you might not have done that in preparation for graduations, you can just double check on our website. We've put the website link in there for you. And whenever you get any surveys or anything from the university, both as a student or as an alumni, please do fill it in, because it helps us actually understand what you want as alumni and how you can contribute further. So thank you ever so much again, Amy and Keshavi, and we look forward to having you at Heriot-Watt for future events. Thank you.